I describe myself as gender fluid.
So I definitely identify as gender fluid.
I also identify as gender fluid.
Hi, my name is Thayer, and my pronouns are they, them. And I'm a college student right now, and I'm interested in disability studies.
Um, so hi, my name is Nicole. I go by they, them, and well, I mean, I'm a photography major and a journalism major at the new school in New York City.
Hey y'all, I'm Robin. I use she, they pronouns. I am currently a college student and I, for fun, like to put myself on stage and hopefully get a laugh out of people, whether it's at me or with me, it truly does not matter.
And thank you guys for doing this with me today. I'm really excited about it. I've seen that a lot of people use different terms to describe gender fluidity. And I wanted to know what words you use to describe your gender. So I describe myself as gender fluid, but I'll also use words like non-binary and transgender and queer and in the LGBTQ plus community. And I use all of those terms to describe my identity.
So I definitely identify as gender fluid. I think the word fluid is like the best representation of my gender. It very much goes, it's like a spectrum for me in the sense like every day it's a different feeling.
Yeah, definitely. I also identify as gender fluid. It has been a lot more recent for me. So I do find myself referring to myself as a girl and a woman a lot still because I'm like, even though I feel it inside, like it's just like so programmed in my brain to like be a woman. Like Nicole, it really depends on the day. Like sometimes I'm having a she, her day, and sometimes I'm having a they, them day. Yeah, that's how I identify as, and like also queer generally and a lesbian generally. Yeah, those are the terms I like to use. Yeah.
So how do you guys define gender fluidity?
I feel like I touched a little bit on this, but I think gender fluidity is like a spectrum in the sense is like man, woman, and then kind of just in between, I'd say. And a lot of the time, I feel like I definitely like go towards more of like the non-binary woman area for me at least. But that's just how I see it. It definitely is different for a lot of other people.
I really like what you said, Nicole, about it's different for different people because like being three gender fluid people here, we can only talk about our own identities. And, often it's helpful to hear about like lots of different gender fluid people and different identities so that you can get a better sense of like, oh, what are things that are like common about among gender fluid people and that kind of thing. We can only talk about our own identities, and you're totally right to bring that up, and I appreciate you mentioning that.
Yeah. I agree. Yep. Gender fluidity is like, for me personally, a very much a spectrum. Like it's either I'm feeling very woman, very female today, or I'm feeling very no gender today, Like I know that like it's a very valid and common thing for a lot of people to like like also see that as non-binary, but like personally for me in my journey in my research, non-binary is more like you don't identify with any gender really at like this sort of the specific like gender norms that have been like set, but for me I definitely do identify with gender norms. It's just like not one. So I'm like,
Yeah.
that's where gender fluidity comes in for sure. That's what it is to me.
And I love that you're clear in how you do identify as gender fluid, you don't identify as non-binary, and that just sort of emphasizing how gender fluidity doesn't need to be like total femme to total masc. It can also be, a spectrum between feminine and agender, or like feminine and, demi-woman or something like that. It doesn't need to be like an all-encompassing spectrum. So I use the term gender fluid to describe myself in that some days I feel much more feminine and some days I feel much more masculine, and some days I feel like in between or not clearly one or the other. I often will use my gender expression to show that. So like today I'm feeling a little more masculine or non-binary, somewhere in that range. And so I picked a slightly more masculine outfit, but I like to use my gender expression to reflect how I'm feeling that day, but I don't like do that 100% of the time. And so it's not like a guarantee. And that's part of the reason why I like using they, them pronouns for myself instead of switching up my pronouns day to day, because that way I'm not needing to tell people every day, like, oh, today's a he day, today's a she day, today's a they day. I can just be they, them all the time and, vary my clothing as I want to without people needing to like pay attention to that or notice that, and letting my gender expression be separate from my gender identity.
Mm-hmm. Switching pronouns is difficult. I've found that to be very hard. I just like, because I just be speaking to people and I'm just like, they're so nice about it. They're like, what pronouns are for you today? And I'm like, it's a they, them day, or like it's a she, her day. But like as kind and beautiful and valid that is, I'm just like, the way you gotta act every day is feeling like not great. So like, again, it's a journey. So like maybe it'll change one day, but you make a very valid point. I also use my clothes as gender expression. I've really gotten into fashion a lot since getting to college, because I went to a private school for 7 years and we just wore uniform. And so I never really got a chance to really express myself in that way. And even when I did wear uniform, like on the weekends and holidays and stuff, like my parents were pretty strict on that stuff. And then when I got here and I didn't have that constrict of uniforms for my parents, I was like, it's time to get spicy. It's time to get delicious. It's time to change it up a little bit. So now I am a fashion icon and I love experimenting with new looks and new fashion. And it's just been so cool putting that along with my gender journey, because I also did not go by she, they until I got to college, which seems to be a very common pipeline I'm seeing for a lot of my friends, both just like my age in general, but also my school specifically, because it was a religious school. So like sometimes that can repress a lot of feelings about these things because they really want you to go on this one path. And like, I see a lot of my friends that I graduated with and they're like using she, they pronouns or they, them pronouns. And I'm like, yeah. Solidarity in leaving this really strict school and discovering your true self. I really love to see it. But yeah, definitely fashion plays a big part of it. Like when I'm just simply not feeling the, hi everyone, today's announcement is that I am woman on this day, but maybe not tomorrow. So I'll keep you updated. Like you can just clearly see my fashion. Like if I'm like, wearing like a schoolgirl skirt and my Elton John shirt, then it's giving woman. But if I'm giving like sweatpants and like a big humongous t-shirt, it's giving they, them. So like, the context clues, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a really good way to put yourself out there in terms of pronouns. So I understand.
So I go to one of the biggest fashion schools in the US. So since coming here, I feel like my fashion has changed a lot, specifically like with the way I see like gender fluidity and how that's represented in fashion. I have a lot of like non-binary friends here who I feel like dress very feminine, and I at a point really thought that like non-binary wasn't able to dress very feminine. And like for me personally, at least, like I would dress very masculine and stray away from the femininity because I didn't want anyone to think I was cis. So it was just that journey when I got here that like really shocked me. I didn't really know I could play around with my femininity. So I've been like dressing very masculine and feminine at the same time. So like I'd wear like maybe a button down and like a skirt, or like mixing the two. And I feel like that sort of fashion has really helped to enhance my gender fluidity. So yeah, just fashion has a big impact on the way you feel about yourself. So
Robin, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's what this whole thing is.
That's what it's for. Yeah.
So I've never used he, they, or she, they pronouns or anything like that. And you talked about how some days you find it helpful to tell people like today's a she day or today's a they day or stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If people are talking about you, if they've just seen one of your amazing performances and they go and they're talking with their friends about it and being like, oh my gosh, you need to see Robin in this show. Robin did a wonderful job. But you're not there to say like, oh, today's a she day or today's a they day. Do you have a preference for how people talk about you?
Not particularly, because I feel like a big part of that specifically that I've been experiencing here is to just have a lot of openness, patience, and understanding. So in terms of like people referring to me that don't know about my pronouns and how they be switching like that, I really don't mind. You could just interchangeable. It does not matter to me. Like either she or they is so fine with me. But I have been like finding that like if it's like a she, her day and like people refer to me as they, I'm like, it doesn't feel right. Or like vice versa. Like if it's a they, them day and they're like, she did great. I'm like, but then I'm like, I kind of did this to myself because I do use she, they pronouns. And I'm not like explaining to this person, hey, I'm she, hers on some days and they, them on other days. So like, it really isn't their fault because they simply did not know. So I'm either learning how to be more comfortable with both, even if it's not a specific day, or I'm trying to find a way in which I can navigate this in a way that's like good for me as well.
When someone meets you for the first time, what do you hope they ask?
I hope that they ask so many things because I love talking about myself. I'm very self-absorbed, but in the best way, because as a child, I was like everybody else first for me. And now I'm like, new chapter of my life, new me. I'm gonna be selfish and talk about myself because I'm equally as important as everybody else. Not them here, me here. It's me here and sometimes here, but mostly this. But yeah, just like ask me anything. I'm like such an open book. Like ask me, what are my pronouns today? What I like to do? What's my favorite color? Do I like mac and cheese? The answer is obviously. Yeah, and like just anything, anything and everything. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Nicole, when someone meets you for the first time, what do you hope they ask or what do you hope they say?
I don't know. That's like tough because it's like I don't know. I feel like a lot of the time, gender fluid people don't want to just be known for their gender. At least for me, like I want to just be able to have you know my pronouns and know my gender, and then be able to treat me like you would treat anyone else. You know. So I guess I mean the only thing I really want someone to ask me is for my pronouns. Like other than that, like ask me what you would normally ask someone, you know?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think I land somewhere between what each of you says in terms of like when someone meets me for the first time, I really hope they say like, "Oh, hey, what's your name and what are your pronouns?" Because then I feel much more comfortable telling them that my pronouns are they them. Sometimes when I'll meet like an older person or something like that, I'll be a little nervous that I'll get a bad reaction if I say my pronouns are they them. And so someone inviting me to share my pronouns makes me feel so much more comfortable and safe. Um, or somebody just saying like, "Hi, my name is Fred and my pronouns are he, him." That lets me kind of know like, oh, okay, this is somebody that I can be comfortable with and somebody that I can be safe with when I say like, "Hey, my pronouns are they, them." But at the same time, like I personally am very open to questions. And I know that that is not the case for all queer people or all gender fluid people. And so if somebody's like, oh, like they, them, like, how does that work? How do I say that? Do I say they is or they are, that kind of thing? Then for me personally, this doesn't go for everybody, but for me personally, I would love if you just asked that and said like, oh, that's not something I've heard of. Can you explain that a little more? And as long as I'm not like really needing to run to the bathroom or something, like I'm happy to talk with you and explain that what that means for me and how to use that for me.
I definitely agree with that. I'm not opposed to questions. I just feel like a lot of the time, like I don't want that to be the first thing we talk about. I mean, I'm down to answer questions always because I feel like no one truly knows your gender identity until they ask follow-up questions. Because even like my roommates, they understand that I'm gender fluid, but sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, I don't see you as a woman, Nicole." And sometimes I'm like, "Oh, maybe I want to be a woman." You know, it's like things like that you don't expect someone to know, but it's in you, like you feel it in yourself, and you know that it's not something that you agree with, so you correct them. But it's like awkward at times to do that because it's like with like man and woman, it's like you have the education behind those two terms. When it comes to like gender fluid and non-binary, it's very much, it's a wide range of definitions that doesn't apply to just like one person.
Yeah, like you're saying, it's like I don't want people to like, I don't like this to like define me as a person. Like there's so many aspects to me as a person, and I like don't want one of them to like be overarching over the other ones. Like when I want someone to know me, I want them to know like the whole package, you know what I'm saying? So like I definitely understand that aspect of your life, and it's present in my life as well. Sarah made a really excellent point about like, you know, older people, you know, and like how you get, like, how do you approach pronouns with them? Like personally, I only use she, they pronouns whilst I'm here at college. Like at home, I am their daughter, I am a girl, I am, like, they know that I'm a lesbian already, but they don't know about the gender. I feel like in some ways it's easier to come out as a lesbian than to come out as gender fluid, because I feel like gender fluidity is not as discussed, which is not great, and that's why we're here to change that. But like everybody knows what a lesbian is, so it's like even if they're not supportive, like at least they know. But like I'm scared of like they're not gonna know, and I'm gonna have to explain it to them, and it's gonna be, I don't want to like it's not that I don't want them to be well informed, I'm just like afraid of the reaction, you know, because for me personally, coming out as a lesbian to them wasn't the easiest either. So like here's a double whammy, you know. Like it's just something I'm not looking forward to. And like, of course I'm an open book and I love answering questions and everything, but like sometimes there's days and moods where I'm like, simply not today. But like I also want to be like the good representation for the gender fluid people, and I don't want to like let them down. Like what if I'm the first gender fluid person you meet, and like what I say is like a defining factor for like how they see gender fluid people for the rest of their life, which obviously is not true because there's so many different types of gender fluid people, but like just like at least a glimpse into the community. So hopefully as we grow older and generations shift, or like as we as queer people, you know, become braver and more outspoken, I guess, then we could change that for the world, and I would really appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree about like the whole like going home and being she, her. I also do that mainly because I changed my pronouns from she, they to they, them like very recently, maybe a few months ago. And I did it on like Instagram. So I kind of just didn't want to like, I didn't want to announce it. I just put it in my Instagram like bio and was like, that's it. Like, it's okay. But yeah, I definitely still use she, her with my parents just because I've had like a weird journey with my gender in the sense that I did kind of come out to them as non-binary freshman year, and they weren't too happy about it. On top of the fact that that I'm a lesbian, they're not happy about that either. So it's just like trying to slowly introduce them to things is hard. So I'm just taking it like one step at a time. But even like my sister, she noticed that like I put they them in my Instagram bio and texted me. She's like, "Oh, do you go by they them now?" And I was like, "Yeah, like, but if you don't want to use they them, like I'm with she, her too. Like, don't worry." And she was like, "No, no, like it's okay. Like I'll use whatever pronouns you want." And I was like, she's 13, so it's like a lot for her. But yeah, so yeah, I feel like I definitely, with my pronouns, I go by they them, but I also definitely am okay with she her. Like it's definitely a spectrum for me. So I just kind of keep they them because it's like in the middle for me of like both, so I don't have to keep switching it around.
Robin, you mentioned like feeling like you need to represent gender fluid people for the people who like meet you, and maybe you're the only gender fluid person they know. And I've also felt like that, like, oh man, like I need to be the perfect gender fluid person. What would you recommend for anybody who like happens to come across this video and is trying to learn more about gender fluidity? Maybe somebody just came out to them, maybe they're questioning their own identity. Would you like, what do you recommend for people who are trying to learn more about gender fluidity?
I think, the classic answer is Google. Google it. I know it's not this, as we discussed in great length, it's not, gender fluidity is not the same for everybody, but personally learning about gender fluidity on the internet is what led me to realizing that, damn, this do be me right here. Like it didn't just like appear within my mind and you're like, guess what? Hey, Robin, this is God. You're actually not a woman, at least not all the time, but you're not a man in any way, shape, or form. But you are like not gendering sometimes at all. So this, my friend, my creation is called gender fluidity. And I'm like, wow, thanks God, appreciate it. Nope, that's not how it happened. And I'm also an atheist, so that's not how it happens either way. So I definitely had to do some research, especially like coming here and seeing all these different gender identities. Like I was chilling with she her. Like there wasn't like nothing wrong with it throughout my entire high school experience. But then like coming here and like listening and hearing all these different gender identities, I'm like, yes, she her is valid for me, but there simply is more. Look it up, and like as you get to know a person, I guess, like because not everyone's open to questions like I am, but like as you get to know a person and they feel that comfortability with you, then like, be like in a respectful way, just like, hey, I noticed that you use she they pronouns. Maybe could I like inquire more about that? I'm really simply not that educated in that sphere, and I would like to get to know more about it and like be respectful of you and all gender fluid or non-binary or however you identify people. Social media is also a great place for that. I know that TikTok is very curated to your tastes, but like I see a lot of TikToks talking about different people's gender identity and everything like that. And that's also helped me a lot personally.